Chair, we have a further question from Mr. Stephen Main. Thank you to Doug McKay and Anne Loveridge for their 9 years of service on the board, which concludes after today's AGM. It is always helpful for investors to have access to some exit perspectives from retiring independent directors. In their final contribution as NAB directors, could Doug and Anne please briefly comment on what they regard as the best 2 decisions NAB made during their time on the board, and do they have any regrets?
I would welcome the opportunity for Doug and Anne to speak. I don't know who wishes to go first. Maybe Anne, would you like to go?
Thanks for the question, and of course it's a time of reflection, and we did that with the board earlier this week. Certainly the best decision was our reflection post the Royal Commission of needing to have more of the customer voice in the room of the board. And so we established a customer committee. So beyond the usual audit, risk and remuneration committees, we have a standalone customer committee. And we also have an independent customer advocate who comes to that meeting and brings the voice of the customer, and particularly vulnerable customers, into the boardroom every time we meet. That certainly changes the lens through which you often are looking at some of the challenges, and I definitely think that's the best. Regrets, this probably won't be a surprise to anyone who's been a long-term attendee at NAB AGMs, that I was chairing the Remuneration Committee through much of my tenure, and we had determined that we would change the remuneration framework for executives in 2018, which of course was the year of the Royal Commission. With hindsight, that was a poor time to change, and the framework had a number of flaws in it that were not evident to us at the time until we were facing into such a difficult year, and so we subsequently changed it. So if I had my time again, we wouldn't do that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Undoubtedly, my highlight was working along with Anne Sherry as the board's CEO selection committee, as we had to respond to the fallout from the Royal Commission. And in so doing, Anne and I secured Ross McEwen as our CEO at such a critical time for NAB. And that for me is a very big highlight. Well, regrets. As the song goes, I've had a few. The biggest one for me is not identifying earlier the fraud perpetrated by our Chief of Staff on the bank. And that is something that we, from that time, all have to live with and take responsibility and ownership for. So that's where I would come out. Thank you.
Thank you.